Kite flying weather. We got a little bit of a breezy day, but thankfully the sun's out to counteract that. So glad to see everybody being willing to stand up for our rights. Obviously, the latest currents in the news have been such that maybe it would be easier to stick our head in the ground and wait for the next one. But you know, if we don't defend our rights, we lose our rights. And that's why it's so critically important that we be seen and be heard and speak the truth in a public realm. Don't just keep it to ourselves, because as Trish said, you know, there's a traditional aspect to this, that if we don't keep the culture of liberty alive, then people will not value it in future generations. So we have to do our part to keep that culture alive, to pass it down so folks know why to value the tradition of liberty that has been bought at so dear a price. I had the opportunity about a month ago to fly down and represent the NFOA in Dallas at the Second Amendment Foundation Gun Rights Policy Conference. And this is a great get-together of hundreds and hundreds of advocates for our right to keep and bear arms from all over the country. And indeed, we even had visitors from the European Union who came to try to understand how to institute a policy of liberty with regards to the right to keep and bear arms, even in Europe, where it's been buried beneath, you know, big piles of laws for seems like a couple generations now at least, right? And they see, though, the value, even from all the way over there with all those laws in the way, they can see why Americans value the right to keep and bear arms. And here in Nebraska, of course, we do too. But I had to give some bad news to our friends down in Dallas that despite the scarlet and cream jerseys that our team wears on the field, unfortunately this state isn't as red in a gun politics sense as people expect. You know, they think of Nebraska as a flyover state or deep red state, an ag state, and some of those things are true. Certainly we're a strong ag state, certainly we are red, but you wouldn't know it from our gun laws. We're one of the only red states that requires a permit to come into possession of a handgun. We have a patchwork of laws at the state level and at the local level that make it very difficult to exercise the right to keep and bear arms in our modern commuter age, where we pass through several jurisdictions over the course of a daily commute. And those several different jurisdictions might have different ways of treating your rights. And you might be able to legally exercise your right to keep and bear arms in Sarpy County and then commute into Lincoln and have difficulty doing that because some ordinance on the books in Lincoln maybe makes you a prohibited person. Or maybe you go into Omaha and you don't realize that even though you don't live there, your handgun is supposed to be registered there if you even enter the city. And that's not what a free state should look like. And so even though we're proud of our traditions and we're proud of the many great things about Nebraska, we have work to do. And the good news is there are people hard at work, some here today, some who couldn't make it today, hard at work trying to improve that status quo in Nebraska and move us in a direction for where gun rights are respected as the fundamental enumerated constitutional right that they are. You know, we need to take this right seriously. The Second Amendment of the federal Constitution, it's first on the books in our state, right? It shouldn't be a second-class right. So we shouldn't have that patchwork of laws. Senator Mike Hilgers from Northwest Lincoln has a bill right now, LB 68, that made it out of committee, made it onto the floor earlier this year, and it will be one of the earliest things, I think, that's discussed on the floor in this next session, starting in January. And there is a real possibility that we could get rid of this patchwork of laws that folks have to deal with right now and try to comply with the best they can right now. But that would be a big win for liberty in our state. We're one of the few states that doesn't have what we call state preemption of local ordinances. And if we're going to take this constitutional right to keep and bear arms seriously, doesn't it make sense to not just allow every little potentate in every little town to decide how they're going to infringe on that constitutional right? Shouldn't it be a serious conversation at the state level when we're talking about a right that's enshrined in our state constitution, our federal constitution? So that's LB 68. High hopes that that will make it through the process. Another great bill that maybe hasn't gotten as much press is LB 666. We didn't pick the number. But what that would do is it would sort of dial back the broad way in which the courts have interpreted the law. Right now in the state of Nebraska, you may not know this, but if you have a pistol in its factory case walking out of the gun store after a new purchase, if you're not a concealed handgun permit holder, that's considered carrying a concealed weapon, and it's in violation of state law right now. And there was a case last year, end of last year, Nebraska v. Sen came down that broadened the definition of a concealed weapon that far to include even commonplace, everyday activities like people walking into a gun range with their cased unloaded firearm. Technically, every one of you has probably been in violation of that law, at least the way that the court has applied it. And so that's a bill. Actually had no opposition. Boy, what a rare thing to say about the Judiciary Committee. No offense to my boss, Chairman Ebke of that committee. But usually there's some pretty strong opposition to pro-gun legislation that lands in front of that committee for hearing. But even the folks who would proudly say they're anti-gun, I think, had to admit that, boy, it is not sensible to say that you should have your gun out rattling around loose in your car instead of in a case when you're transporting. It's just ludicrous that that's where the law has gone. But again, we do have folks fighting to draw back that government authority and to let liberty breathe a little bit. I'm proud to work for one of those folks, Senator Laura Ebke, who, as I mentioned, is the chairman of the Judiciary Committee. Also glad to see Joe Murray here, who is a great candidate for the legislature, who would be a champion for your right to keep and bear arms. Let's give him a hand. But remember that watchfulness on your part is what's going to get good policy to come out of the sausage machine that's behind me here. The legislative process and the bureaucratic process of regulations being promulgated. If your representatives don't hear from you, don't know that you're going to take action to protect this right that we all have under the laws of this land, maybe they're not going to be as fired up about it. We want to keep them fired up. Please make sure that you're doing your part to let them know that you are a voter who considers this to be a very important issue in choosing who you're going to support come election time, and that you're somebody who watches what they do throughout their term, not just the 6 months running up to the election. So I will stop talking at you for now, but I hope that you'll be as active on a warm day as you are on a cold day like today or a cool day like today, and hope that we can keep our numbers present and in front of our elected officials so they know who they're supposed to be serving. So thank you very much.